it's that time again for Bedlam Buds. I'm a Boomer Sooner wearing my master's degree cap from Arizona State, but you see it back there, Boomer Sooner. This is my buddy Jeremy.
Go Pokes.
And the topic of today's video is essentially a post-mortem, a post-season look at the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And Jeremy, you know, the defense was pretty decent against Iowa State, and they've been pretty decent the past 3 games. It offers a lot of what could have been.
No, absolutely. The biggest what could have been, I mean, because you're right. You look at the defensive improvement. I mean, they gave up 69 points to Oregon, and Oregon had 13 points inside of 2 minutes. I did the math. If they had continued that pace, the final score would have been 299-0. Which fortunately did not happen, but it wasn't much better at 69.
That would have been scoregami for sure.
Oh yeah, 100% would have been scoregami. But you go from that until K-State, UCF, and Iowa State did not do a lot on offense against the Cowboys. And the Oklahoma State offense did not help the defense in any way, shape, or form. So the fact that the defense was able to maintain or create such a high level and to improve throughout the season, you know, that's a really good sign. But still the biggest what if, and this one's a big one. If quarterback Hauss Hejny, the starting quarterback, does not break his foot in the very first game, Oklahoma State might be in a bowl game. And if Oklahoma State's in a bowl game, Mike Gundy is still the head coach.
That's right. It's not 2 seasons in a row without a conference win. Guaranteed. I mean, I think it's one of the most logical conclusions you can draw from this. By the way, have you heard any word on his rehab, his recovery?
It's progressing. He probably, honestly, the last game or 2 might have been able to play if needed, but there was, with no bowl game possibility, with him probably, my assumption is being able to get a medical red shirt for this year. It was the smartest for him to save that season for down the road when he can be fully recovered without any issues. But I think the last couple of games, he was recovered enough. He could have played, but it just wasn't worth it at that time. And I 100% support him in that. And I think all Oklahoma State fans 100% support him in that.
The moment that Mike Gundy was fired, it was looking ahead to next year essentially anyway and building the program, because programs can be built quickly. I mean, we see with the new coach coming in, Eric Morris, and what he's done at Incarnate Word and at North Texas, just how quickly this can happen. And Eric Morris has a championship game of his own to win. And if they beat Tulane, there's a fair chance that they're in the playoff. My understanding is that if Duke were to beat Virginia, Duke isn't necessarily accepted into the playoff. It's not an automatic. Then all of a sudden you would have the winner of North Texas Tulane and the winner of the other group of 5 games. I forgot what it is exactly.
James Madison, I think.
Right. And by the way, their coach just got hired by UCLA. One of the best hires that UCLA has made in my life. I have all my in-laws are all UCLA people, and I'm like, ugh. What are you doing? But this hire of the James Madison coach, really, really, really good. But you heard about all the SEC changes yesterday. Lane Kiffin to LSU, Alex Gorish to Auburn, Ryan, whatever his name is, off to Arkansas. Memphis beat Arkansas. I wanted to say Ryan Fitzgerald. I don't think that's it though. Right?
I wanted to say it's something like
that. Silverfield or something like that. But none is as impressive to me personally as Oklahoma State getting Eric Morris. I think Eric Morris, I remember when Bob Stoops was hired, this young defensive wonderkind, and Eric Morris on the offensive side of the ball. The Leach coaching tree don't lie. There's some greatness there, I think. So how closely will you be watching the Mean Green this Friday or this weekend to see how they do against Tulane?
Well, absolutely. Since the coach is already in place, and since apparently, reports are that a lot of his offensive staff have started recruiting for Oklahoma State. So, you want to see the future. You want to see what he can do at North Texas, and then hopefully kick that up a notch or 2 when it comes to Oklahoma State. Hopefully better facilities, better backing, better ability to recruit. And And so, being a Power 4 school, and, a Big 12 type of school, and with him being familiar with the area, said. But yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be curious because part of it is I'm going to be kind of curious about Ole Miss because will they fall apart without Kiffin and those guys?
Right.
And so I want to see how North Texas handles this transition. The difference here, of course, is that North Texas said, Morris, we want you to stay and coach out. And his players said, we want you to stay and coach us out. And so I fully expect North Texas to come out guns a-blazing. I expect them to do very well because those players, honestly, some of those guys are playing for a spot in a Power 4 team since he and his offensive staff are now in charge of scholarships. And with the portal, they could bring several of those kids up, not just the quarterback, but also the running back who is from Shawnee, Oklahoma. And he's had a terrific season, and maybe a few of the other players, you never know. So absolutely, I'm going to be watching that with close eye, and if something happens, it's not the end of the world. Tulane wants to win that ball game just as much as everybody else, and they want to prove those points as well. So, it's going to be more out of, okay, let's see how that team responds and, how do they coach in that situation? And again, with some of those coaches coming up with him, I'm very curious about it. I will be watching.
Would be willing to bet that Stillwater, Oklahoma will be one of the top media markets for that game. I don't know what channel it's on, but whenever the ratings come out, I think you'll have Denton, I think you'll have Louisiana or New Orleans, and I think you'll have Stillwater, Oklahoma, because you're going to be looking at those players saying, who's coming? Who's coming to Stillwater next year? And or what they might be able to do. It's been one of those years that people are going to forget, but it's also the year before the start of the light is, or it's always darkest right before the dawn. And it just, that seems like where we're at. But let's take your what could have been if Hauss Hejny doesn't get hurt. Which of those games out there, I look at the last three in particular, and I'm like, those might all three have been wins. I'm pulling up my app here.
Absolutely. No, they absolutely. I'm firmly in the camp that with Hauss Hejny, we win all three of those games, even if the rest of the season had gone as it did, which I don't think it would have. I think there's another 2 wins in there. Again, I think that Oklahoma State not necessarily easily, but it very conceivably could have been in a bowl game with Hauss Hejny at quarterback. I don't think that you might have had quite as many defections on the offensive side, guys jumping into the portal after the coach left. Just those last 3 games, Iowa State was a touchdown and several turnovers. UCF was a 3-point game. Oklahoma State had a 14-point lead and then got 27 yards of offense in this. That's all they got, 27 yards, and still only gave up 17 points, right? Kansas State had a missed field goal, had 4 or 5 turnovers, and still only lost by, a touchdown. Basically a touchdown. And the way I look at it is Oklahoma State scored twice and Kansas State scored twice, so it should have been a tie.
Right. 2 field goals for 2 touchdowns. Plus, I don't think Oklahoma State loses to Tulsa, and so now you're up to 5 wins. You're not going to overturn the Oregon game, probably not going to overturn the Texas Tech game, and maybe not the Arizona game because you were out there in Tucson. But Houston at home and Cincinnati at home, that Cincinnati game is way closer than 49-17 would let you on to believe.
Absolutely. Cincinnati, I think, scored like 21 points in the fourth quarter. And one of those was because I was in that end zone taking pictures and threw a pass, and it was picked off in the end zone. And I think that was the one that was like returned 100 yards. So the defense was still doing their jobs. The offense was giving up as many points as our defense was. And so if you change that quarterback position, and I like Zane Flores. This is not a knock on Zane Flores, but Hauss Hejny became the starter for a reason. Hauss Hejny came in and won that spot for a reason, and then literally broke his foot in the first game after he led 2 straight scoring drives. And you go, yes, it was just UT Martin. True. But he led 2 straight scoring drives. Flores did not.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so, then you add that, you get a little bit of a snowball effect. And I'm saying even the Kansas game. The Kansas game was a 17-point loss, I believe, but you had multiple turnovers. You had the offense sort of working, sort of not, with a different quarterback, with a healthy Hauss Hejny, because one of the main differences between Haney and Flores is Haney could run. Now, Flores is mobile, but Haney can run. Haney could use his feet very effectively. Matter of fact, he scored a touchdown at UT Martin by running the ball. And so just adding that element takes pressure off some of the other part of the running game, takes a little bit of pressure off of the passing game, which gives you a more efficient offense. And so I'm looking at possibly Kansas, possibly Cincinnati. Again, the score did not tell the tale. That game was up in the air until the fourth quarter, and then Oklahoma State collapsed. And once again, the collapse was eventually on the defensive side, but the offense was giving up points. And the defense could only hold on for so long. And, the thing that happened in the last few games, even though there was a lot of turnovers by the offense, at least they did not give up points. And that's why those games were much closer than those early games. Plus, you had defensive improvement. And in some cases, there was addition by subtraction. There were some guys who were still playing that might not have been bought in, and the team themselves took care of that. And the team themselves said, listen, you're either all in or you're not. And so, so there was a little bit of some bonding, a little bit of brotherhood going on there, a little bit of us against the world. And, you either, fish or cut bait. And, to use a good Oklahoma saying. And so, we just wanted guys that were there to fish. And, eventually we got to that. And those last 3 games were all winnable. And here's another part of that what if. So if Haney stays, and if they win that, we're at 5 wins that we all can agree on. And then if they get Cincinnati or Kansas or possibly Houston, one of those, then you're in a bowl game. Does Mike Gundy still have a job?
Probably.
Are we even talking about Eric Morris at this?
Yeah.
It's hard to fire a guy for being successful. It's hard to get rid of a guy for winning and going to bowl games.
And improving over last year.
Absolutely. And getting better, right? Winning a conference game. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And so we're in the Eric Morris situation, which honestly probably is better for the long term. Now, we will see. He might not be successful. I suspect that he's going to be successful.
I think he is. Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm looking at the whole coaching carousel, which is just bonkers this year. I mean, so many people followed Oklahoma State's lead and fired their coach early that, all of this is going on while the season is still playing out. It's a little bit different with the FBS to the power schools, but I think that Oklahoma State got an absolute diamond in Morris because of all those things that we've already talked about. Of all those guys, again, he was the one I wanted from the beginning. Oklahoma State is a great situation for him and his staff because of the last 2 years. He doesn't have to come in and win the conference title next year. But if he does, hell yeah, we're all about it. But just improvement, winning some conference games, making a bowl game, those type of things, you're going to win that crowd back, and you're going to win those boosters back, and that can continue.
I think the quality of the offense that you see out of Eric Morris is going to be the first thing that brings people back to the fold, and the wins I think will come because I think the defense in the last 3 games were there. A couple of quick questions before I ask you a couple of questions about the just the coaching carousel in general, and a couple of thoughts from myself. But for next year, the biggest bright spot that you see that's settling into place, and the biggest point of concern, it could be a position unit, whatever.
Well, the brightest spot, of course, is just the hiring of Eric Morris, because that I fully believe changes the trajectory of Oklahoma State football. We thought 3-9 was bad last year, and yet here we are with double-digit losses. people are saying that this was the worst season in Oklahoma State modern football history. And I sat through 0-10-1, but that tie was at Iowa State. It was against a D1, Big 12 institution. And so beating a UT Martin might not compare to tying an Iowa State on the road. So, and statistically, I think you could argue that, offensively for sure, this was the worst season in modern Oklahoma State history. So hiring a young, dynamic coach is tremendous. His, like I said, a lot of his offensive staff, reports and rumors are starting to recruit for Oklahoma State, including his offensive coordinator. So that's a terrific sign. But if that quarterback comes with him and the running back comes with him, now again, Hauss Hejny's a really good quarterback, and Rodney Fields. I mean, we got Fields and a couple of these other running backs that I think are terrific, but you can never have enough good quarterbacks. You can never have enough good running backs in particular, because, that's a position that gets injured, and there are different stylistic matchups that can help. So I think if that quarterback and that running back come up with him, I think that's a gold star right there. I mean, I'm talking, 5 stars out of 5 as far as I'm concerned.
10 out of 10, no notes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Now,
what points of concern?
Points of concern is what's he going to do on defense? What's he going to do on defense? It's a different world at the Big 12 Power 4 conference level than it is, at the FBS. And so, what's he going to do? Is he going to retain some of the staff at Oklahoma State that showed improvement? I mean, that showed the guys that stuck around could play some ball and they could get some stops. At UCF, if Oklahoma State gets 17, Oklahoma State wins that game. I don't think UCF at that point gets their 17, but the offense just couldn't do it. So the defense did everything it possibly could, at a road game, a tough place to play. But the question is, what does he do on defense? Again, does he retain some of this staff because they showed improvement, or does he walk in and completely clean house and, build from the ground level up? So that, that's where the concern is.
So North Texas had there were a couple of games that clue us into that. The 59-10 win over Washington State, impressive, but also the 63-36 loss to South Florida. So we'll see how that goes. Let's talk about the coaching carousel real quick. While I am a fan of Lane Kiffin in general, I don't know that he handled this right. And by the way, who's to say? I mean, I get it. LSU's bigger, more money, et cetera, et cetera. But Glenn Fry once saying, do you go back to the one who loves you, or are you going back to the one you love? And I got the sense in his interview that Lane didn't want to leave. There's a ghost of his father there. And he went and talked to Pete Carroll, who, my family, they're all UCLA people. They can't stand Pete Carroll. And then you got Nick Saban. Nick Saban, who has said, apparently, that he regretted leaving LSU for Alabama. All that said, they're all encouraging him, saying your dad would have wanted you to do this. And when I heard Lane Kiffin talking to that guy who was, they were all making fun of him because he was like a hostage in the SEC booth. He's like, I can't leave until this is done. He did a great job, that reporter. But when he got the interview on the tarmac there before Lane left for Baton Rouge, Lane didn't sound like a guy who was really excited about going to Baton Rouge. He gets to Baton Rouge, and then he raises the hand of one of the wide receivers that he turned. And I don't know if that was Braylon Allen, the guy who had committed to Oklahoma or not, but he looked like a guy who was ready to party in Baton Rouge. With that said, Lane Kiffin off the table. I think Eric Morris and maybe the James Madison guy that UCLA just hired might be the best coaching pickups of this season of the coaching carousel. And the biggest mistake is going to be Kentucky not firing Mark Stoops sooner. Who they going to get?
Well, I mean, that, when Oklahoma State jumped so early, it didn't necessarily immediately send shockwaves through, but it wasn't long after that. And so you're right. All these schools that got rid of their coaches now have coaches, those who waited a little bit longer. But there could be offensive coordinators out there, Colin Klein. guys like that are still playing, that are still, involved in that playoff process that Kentucky might be able to look at. Kentucky is not a football powerhouse. They're good, but they're not a football powerhouse. And so they will have to do kind of like what Oklahoma State did, what actually even UCLA did. UCLA's, had to drop off for a while. And it's to go to that next level, that FBS, and distill the rising stars out of that next level to pull up to see how they do. Now, I think that the most interesting thing about all of this is how successful will these coaches be? Is this could set up FBS coaches to advance for a long time if these guys come in and are immediately successful. Now, but you got to hope they're not like Deion Sanders, who was successful at Colorado for a couple of years. And then this year, and when I say successful, I'm talking about average. They were 13-12. Okay. Those first 2 years, and he had a generational talent in Travis Hunter and was only 13-12. Okay. But he came from the traditional HBCU area and was successful at Colorado, but he's been having health issues. So what does that play a factor? But the fact that Colorado dropped off so much this year raises concerns for those coaches that are coming up. Now, again, I'm still of the mind that Eric Morris is the superstar of all of that. I think that out of all of those, hiring a Lane Kiffin, that's next level. He's proven success at multiple big-time universities, so that should be a home run. We'll see. LSU is a unique place to play and coach, okay? But I think that out of all that next round, I think that Eric Morse is the one because of his track record of offense, the quarterback there, his ability to win at whatever level, his ability to get North Texas ranked first time since the 50s, conference championship game, and all of that in a very competitive conference. And he's recruiting also against Texas and Texas A&M and Tech and some of those guys, trying to steal some players so that they can advance. So move him up to Oklahoma State, where we have had a whole bunch of success recently and still have great facilities and all that. I think he's going to be the one. But to me, the biggest question on all of this is, how do those FBS coaches' success happen this next year? Does it happen? Or, if it doesn't happen, those coaches that are at that level who want to advance are going to have to take coordinator jobs. They're going to have to work their way up a ladder as opposed to jumping directly from head coach at a North Texas to the head coach at Oklahoma State. And so to me, that's the biggest question on all of this. You could talk about what are some of the strange fits out there, as far as coaches to schools. That's why I'm kind of curious about the Lane Kiffin situation. I'm going to see how that shakes out, see how Ole Miss responds, to them, a whole bunch of that staff now living in Baton Rouge, as opposed to Oxford. And so, that will be the storyline for all of next year. LSU is going to be the most hated, but also probably the most watched team in all of college football next year because of this. And if Kiffin, loses a game or two out of the gate, even in SEC play, questions will immediately be asked. And so, that's the dramatic headline. But to me, again, just to reiterate, to me, the most intriguing thing about all of the carousels is, how do all of the FBS coaches succeed or fail? And if that will tell the story on FBS coaches for the next 10 years.
Referring to FBS coaches like the smaller schools.
Sorry. Yeah, smaller schools.
Yeah, no, I
outside of the Power 4.
Right, outside the Power 4. Totally agree.